Hello and welcome to the English Speaking Studio. I'm Jack, your co-host.
And I'm Lucy. Together, we're here to bring you practical tips, fun conversations, and everything you need to speak English with confidence. Let's get started.
All right, so today we're diving deep into something a little different, a beginner English conversation.
Oh, wow.
You might be thinking, what could we possibly learn from something so basic?
Yeah.
But trust me on this one. We're going to uncover some pretty fascinating insights into how people learn languages, how cultures kind of intertwine, and maybe even get a glimpse of what makes us all human, you know?
It's funny how we just go about our days having these conversations without realizing how much is going on beneath the surface, you know?
I'm excited to peel back those layers. So where do we even begin with a simple chat like this?
Well, even the simplest conversations, they have a structure. And in this case, it's super predictable. It's like question, answer, question, answer. Where are you from? I'm from.
Right.
Why do you think that is?
I guess for beginners, it's like a safety net, you know? It's a familiar pattern they can rely on while they're still getting comfortable with the language.
Yeah, it's exactly.
Reduces that cognitive load and lets them focus on practicing the basic vocabulary and grammar. But even within that structure, they manage to reveal a lot about themselves. What jumped out at you when you were listening to this exchange?
Honestly, I was struck by how much personality comes through, even with really limited language. Like, Milan mentions he loves sushi, and Hannah prefers pasta. Simple choices, right? But I immediately started picturing their lives, you know?
Yeah.
Like Milan searching for the best sushi spot, or Hannah whipping up her family pasta recipe.
You're already doing it. You're connecting those tiny details to a bigger cultural picture.
Yeah.
Food's a fantastic entry point because it's so tied to our upbringing and our personal preferences. I think what's really fascinating here is how those preferences might influence their interactions as they get to know each other better.
Oh, totally. Like, will they try each other's favorite dishes? Will they bond over some shared food experience? Or will their differences spark some friendly debate about which cuisine reigns supreme?
Oh,
What do you think, listener? Do you find yourself drawn to people who have similar food preferences? Yeah, and it goes beyond just the words themselves. Even in a transcript, you can sense the pauses, the inflections, maybe even a little laughter sprinkled in. Those nonverbal cues are like a secret language adding another layer of meaning to the conversation.
that's so true. I noticed that when Milan was talking about playing guitar, there was this subtle shift in his tone.
Right?
Like you can practically hear the passion in his voice, even just reading the words on the page. It makes you wonder what other nonverbal signals they're sending to each other.
That's a big challenge for language learners. Mastering the subtleties of nonverbal communication, things like eye contact gestures, tone of voice, that can be just as important as learning the vocabulary and grammar.
And it's not always easy to teach those nuances, is it? It's more about observation and immersion, picking up on those unspoken cues through experience. What about you, listener? Have you ever had a situation where someone's words and their body language were telling two completely different stories?
It's interesting. We've been talking a lot about the individual speakers, but there's something pretty cool happening on a broader level, too. Notice how they start asking each other about things like their favorite colors, their dreams, their fears. These are universal themes, right?
Yeah, it's like they're moving past the surface level, getting to know you stuff, and tapping into something much deeper. Something that connects them as human beings, regardless of language or cultural background.
Exactly. It's a reminder that even in a simple beginner's conversation, there's this inherent desire to connect, to find common ground, to share something meaningful. So what do you make of that, listener?
And it makes me curious to see how these themes play out as the conversation unfolds. Should we dive into some more specific examples of how they're using the language itself?
Yeah, let's do it. I think you'll find there's a lot more to unpack here than meets the eye. Welcome back to our deep dive. So we've been talking about how even a basic English conversation can reveal so much about culture, personal connection, and the learning process itself. Now let's put on our linguistic detective hats and analyze how Milan and Hannah are actually using the language.
All right, I'm ready to geek out a little. What kind of things should we be paying attention to?
Well, notice how they stick to simple, straightforward sentences. Lots of present tense verbs, common vocabulary. It's like they're building a foundation brick by brick.
Makes sense, right? You can't exactly build a skyscraper without a solid base.
Precisely.
Mm.
And we can actually see them gradually incorporating new elements. Like, for example, they start talking about hobbies using the like plus do form. I like to read books. I like to play guitar. And what's interesting is that this structure isn't always directly taught in textbooks, but it kind of emerges naturally through conversation.
It's like their brains are intuitively figuring out the patterns of the language just by listening and interacting. That's pretty cool. What else can we learn from their word choices?
Their questions are revealing. They go beyond simple yes or no questions and start using why questions. Where do you live? What do you do? How old are you? This shows they're not just practicing phrases. They're actively seeking information, showing genuine curiosity about each other.
I notice they repeat certain phrases and structures like, what about you? I used to think repetition was just about memorization, but seeing it in action like this, it feels more like they're really internalizing these phrases, making them their own.
Exactly. It's not about mindless repetition. It's about integrating these chunks of language into their conversational toolbox. And as they gain confidence, we see them venturing into slightly more complex sentences. Milan says, I enjoy playing guitar and cycling, using and to connect two ideas. Small step, but a significant one.
Those little connecting words, conjunctions, right? They're like leveling up your grammar game. It allows you to express more nuanced thoughts and create those richer connections between ideas.
And speaking of leveling up, did you catch any errors in their English? Because, spoiler alert, mistakes are part of the process.
Ooh, yeah. Milan says, I like playing tennis. A classic beginner slip-up, doubling up on the verb. It's so common, and I think it highlights something really crucial about language learning. It's okay to make mistakes.
Absolutely. In fact, mistakes are invaluable. They show us where the gaps in our understanding are, and they force us to pay closer attention to those subtle rules of grammar. But what's equally important is that Milan and Hannah don't let these little errors derail the conversation. They just keep going, focusing on connecting with each other.
That's such a great lesson for anyone learning a language or really learning anything new. Don't get hung up on perfection. Embrace the stumbles because they're just stepping stones on the path to fluency. What about you, listener? Have you had any aha moments from your own language learning mistakes?
Now remember, those seemingly simple exchanges about sushi versus pasta reading versus cycling, let's revisit those through the lens of cultural nuances.
Right. It's like those choices weren't random. They were little windows into their cultural backgrounds, their upbringing, their values.
Milan's love for sushi might stem from a culture where seafood is really prominent. Maybe even a tradition of family outings to sushi restaurants. Hannah's preference for pasta could be linked to family gatherings around a big pot of homemade sauce generations sharing recipes and stories. These seemingly small details are threads in a much larger cultural tapestry.
I also noticed how polite and formal they are with each other, even when they're discussing pretty casual topics. Lots of nice to meet you and thank you sprinkled throughout. That got me thinking about how politeness norms can vary drastically across cultures.
It's a great observation. What's considered polite and respectful in one culture might be perceived as overly formal or even insincere in another. Learning a language isn't just about vocabulary and grammar. It's about understanding the unspoken rules of social interaction. It's like learning the choreography of a cultural dance.
I love that analogy. And it makes me wonder, listener, have you ever experienced a cross-cultural miscommunication because of those differing politeness norms? Those moments can be awkward, but they're also incredibly insightful, aren't they?
It's all part of the journey. And language learning is about more than just acquiring words. It's about expanding our understanding of the world and the diverse ways people experience it.
And it seems like Milan and Hannah are doing a great job of that, even at a beginner level. They're building a bridge between cultures one sentence at a time.
They're proving that even with limited language skills, you can still connect with others on a deeper level, sharing experiences and exploring universal themes. And that's what we'll delve into in our final part.
I can't wait to see where this conversation takes us next.
Welcome back. It's amazing how much we've uncovered from this simple conversation already. We've talked about the structure of the language, the cultural nuances, and even the importance of embracing those mistakes. But now I'm really curious to explore some of those deeper themes that emerge, the dreams, the fears, those little glimpses of shared humanity that go beyond language barriers.
It is fascinating, isn't it? How even with such limited vocabulary and grammar, Milan and Hannah still managed to touch on these profound universal experiences. Like when Milan asks Hannah about her dream job, he's not just asking about a profession, he's tapping into her aspirations, her hopes for the future.
Yeah, and her response when she says she dreams of becoming a writer, it's like she's revealing this core part of herself, her desire to create and share her stories with the world. What about you, listener? Have you ever thought about how you'd express your dreams and aspirations in another language? What words would you use? What emotions would you want to convey? And then there's this seemingly simple question about their favorite colors. It seems almost childlike, right? But our color preferences can actually reveal so much about our personalities and emotional states. Like research shows that people who prefer blue tend to be more analytical and introspective, while those who are drawn to red are often more energetic and outgoing.
I've always loved green. It reminds me of nature, tranquility, growth. And thinking about it now, it actually does align with my personality. I'm drawn to calmer environments. I love being outdoors, and I'm always trying to learn and expand my horizons. It's funny how something as simple as a favorite color can have such deeper meaning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not just about individual psychology. Colors also hold different cultural significance as well. Like in some cultures, white is associated with purity and mourning, while in others it represents joy and celebration. So even a simple question about favorite colors can spark this really interesting dialogue about cultural perspectives and those shared human experiences.
It makes me think about all the ways we communicate that go beyond just the literal words. It's like we're always sending these messages through our body language, our tone of voice, even our choices in clothing and personal style.
Exactly. And as language learners, it's so important to develop this awareness of communication as a whole. It's not enough to just memorize vocabulary and grammar rules. We have to understand the cultural context, the subtle cues, the unspoken rules that really shape how people interact.
It's like learning a new dance, right? You need to know the steps, but you also need to feel the rhythm, sense your partner's energy, and express yourself authentically within that structure.
And speaking of shared experiences, what about that part where they talk about travel? That's a topic that comes up all the time in language exchanges.
And it's not a coincidence. Travel is about more than just seeing new places. It's about expanding our perspectives, challenging our assumptions, and connecting with people from all walks of life. Milan talks about his trip to Spain, describing the vibrant culture and the delicious food. And Hannah shares her experience visiting Thailand, marveling at those ancient temples and the warmth of the people. It's like they're not just recounting facts, they're sharing memories, emotions, personal transformations.
Exactly. They're weaving together this tapestry of shared human experiences, demonstrating that despite their language differences, they both possess this innate human desire to explore, to discover, to connect with something bigger than themselves.
It really makes you wonder, listener, what are some of your most cherished travel memories? What places have touched your heart, expanded your understanding of the world, or helped you connect with people from different cultures? And how would you share those experiences in another language, capturing the essence of what those journeys meant to you?
As we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's safe to say that even a simple beginner English conversation can offer a wealth of insights, By paying attention to the little nuances of the language, the cultural undercurrents, and those universal themes that pop up, we can gain a much richer understanding of ourselves, our connection to others, and the beautiful complexity of human communication.
It's a good reminder that language learning is about so much more than just acquiring words and grammar rules. It's about opening ourselves up to new perspectives, embracing the richness of human diversity, and creating those deeper connections across cultures and languages.
So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep having those meaningful conversations, no matter how simple they might seem. You never know what fascinating insights and connections you might uncover along the way.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into this beginner English conversation. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and until next time, keep those linguistic wheels turning.